So I'm here to talk about ProTalking your way into open source. ProTalk was my first open source project, so that's why we have the title. But before I begin, if you want the purple elephant, you can go to that link and pledge for it, because they're awesome. So I'm not really going to say who I am. I'm going to ask, who are you? How many of you have contributed to open source before? All right. How many have made your own open source project? What are you doing here? So you guys, you know how this works, so you can contribute to my talk. And the promise of open source is better quality, higher reliability, more flexibility, lower cost, and an end to predatory vendor lock-in from opensource.org. So better quality when everyone watches and thinks, yeah, it's better quality than if you sit alone in your bedroom and nobody cares, right? And with better quality comes higher reliability and more flexibility. So it's also really cheap compared, because you get developers for free instead of having a whole team working on it. It might be worth open sourcing your project only to save cost. And my personal favorite, an end to predatory vendor lock-in. What does that exactly mean? Basically, you're not dependent on your vendor anymore, and when something happens, probably someone else can fix it, and it's awesome. Convinced yet? Anyone not convinced? Great, I'm done. So I'm going to tell you a story of who I was. But first, I'm going to say that my mom is a graphical artist, so these are the only pictures you will see of me. And if I got enough nutritional value from code, I would eat that and nothing else. I was a code addict, and I had been programming since I was 12 years old or something. But, you know, I would never share it, ever, ever, ever. I didn't want anyone to see it. Because if someone would see my code, I didn't know. I was a bedroom coder. I didn't know how it looked like. And I was really, really scared of the trolls. They would come and eat me, and, you know, I was not comfortable at all. So I made websites under a nickname. No one knew my real name. Everyone thought I was male, because that helped as well. So I had no portfolio because of this, which led to me being unemployable. No one wanted to hire me. And what do you do if you're unemployable? You start your own company. So I started Yippee! Which is, you know, it was a fun logo and a fun name, but that's about it. I did manage to get a few clients, which is cool. But I still had no code confidence at all. I mean, I thought I was the crappiest programmer in the world. And this is partly why I wanted to contribute. So why I really wanted to contribute was that I felt ashamed for not contributing. I went to a conference, PHP Benelux, and in there was this keynote where the speaker told everyone who had been contributing to stand up. So I'm going to do the same here. Everyone who ever contributed to open source, stand up. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I felt when I was sitting down. It didn't feel good. You can sit down. So I'm going to teach you how to contribute. I found these cool projects that I wanted to help them improve. The project is called ProTalk, and it's not about talking professionally. It's this video and a lot of other videos being there. It's videos about PHP. So if you want to see an earlier version of this talk, it will be there soon. And ProTalk really, really helped me. And I realized that's wrong. So ProTalk helped me in so many ways because I could watch the videos. They had videos, and then they had the slides next to the video. So you can really, really follow along. So when you're choosing your own project, there's so many things you want to look at. So the first thing is, what are your friends doing? That really helps. If you work with your friends, it's going to be so much easier. But, you may not have friends, so, well. Second step is to be passionate. Be really, really, really passionate. You're going to do this for free, so if you're not passionate about it, don't do it. Find something that you really like to do. Or something, if you found a bug in the open source software, that can be your first contribution. It's really, really helpful. Or you can improve what you already use. So by that, I mean, if you are using an open source project, let's say you're using Symfony 2, and you found something, hey, wait, this would be much cooler if the framework had this feature. Why don't you add it? Because that's a really cool contribution. Or if you think the documentation is lacking. So I did this, I used it, but I had to ask a million questions. Put them into that documentation and contribute that way. And if you don't think any of this is cool, you can be a superhero, because that's cool. So Code Montage is really new, and they have all these cool projects in there. And if you're ready to change the world, go in there and you'll see, for instance, Github, which is a really good project. And, obstacles. We all had them, including the speakers here at this conference. So David Shafik, community guy, super awesome. His first obstacle was fear. I think a lot of people have this. And then finding something to actually do. It's really hard, but hopefully, ProTalk or tune in. And Lorna, she's also awesome. She didn't realize her efforts would be useful or welcome. And now she appreciates the effort and she's doing it anyway. And that's the way you should see it. Just do it anyway. So Joshua, he didn't really know. He's a bit older than I am. And he thinks he contributed to the Linux kernel first, but not really sure. And he couldn't say what his biggest obstacle is. But he thinks the biggest issue for starting contributors is they're overwhelmed by the current user base. Eli's also quite interesting. He didn't want to do it just as a hobby. So he was trying to convince NASA, but obviously they didn't want to share their code, so he failed. The third hurdle was that he had no open source karma. Even though he was a senior programmer, he had been programming for ages, nobody wanted to trust his code or him. So that was a big hurdle for him. Beth had another story, kind of similar to mine. She was afraid of being publicly ridiculed. She was really scared. And the worst part is that she was publicly ridiculed as well. And that scared her off for 1.5 years. There she is! So, but thanks to the PHP community, she made it through. My obstacles are technology, new technology, and fear of public ridicule. If I'm trying something new, I'm scared I'm doing it wrong, and everyone will see it. So, first off, ProTalk was using Symfony 2. That was a new framework for me because I had been using Send framework. And I thought of really not contributing because, Symfony, I was scared. And I would be doing it wrong. I wouldn't be doing it the Symfony way, like everyone was saying. But trying out Symfony led to so many things. I tried Twig for the first time. Twig is an awesome templating engine, and I completely fell in love with it, only because I wasn't that afraid, I guess, to try it. And Composer, oh my god, I cannot live without it now. Composer is the most amazing tool ever. If you don't know what Composer is, it's a package manager for PHP. And then the biggest obstacle in my technology for ProTalk was actually Vagrant. Because I'm not DevOps, and Vagrant is this virtual machine where you set up your coding environment. And that was new to me, but I actually learned that it made my life easier. All you do is that you read the README and then add whatever to your host file. That is the Vagrant IP, and then the host. And then you type Vagrant up in the terminal. And it's really easy. Then you watch the magic happen. It's really just magic. It sets everything up for you. It's installing Git, Neo4j, which I'm using, Composer. This is a Symfony project called Hub I'm working on. And that's it. And of course, Erica is going to talk about Vagrant tomorrow. So if you actually want to know more about it, go to Erica's talk. And I also didn't know GitHub very well when I was going to contribute to ProTalk. And I was using a graphical client called Gitbox to do Git, and that turned out to be a really big obstacle for me. I learned now that the GitHub client is actually pretty good. So what you can do is that you see all your forks in there, and you can clone it to your computer from there. And when you commit something from this client, it will automatically go to GitHub, to your fork. So you don't have to pull and merge, and you don't have to care. You can actually just code and not worry about it. But, that's good for basics and getting started. But you really have to start doing Git. I had some obstacles, honestly. It was difficult for me. But no one has to know it was difficult, because you can change everything in Git. For instance, you can start amending things. Git commit -m initial commit, so just commit something, add whatever you forgot, and amend it, and it's perfect. People don't have to know you forgot it. Yay! And also, I realized it was pretty awkward because I had been reading documentation, I had been reading about Symfony. It took me ages before I could actually contribute. So my fork was completely outdated. So you need to keep yourself updated. And I didn't find any easy way to do this in my graphical client I did by then. So just these 3 lines, add your upstream, fetch it, and merge it, and you're updated. It's awesome. And with Git, you can't change anything. So don't worry, just keep doing Git. About 2 weeks ago, I believe, I was at the Sunshine PHP. Sunshine PHP is an awesome conference in Miami, Florida. And then I saw this Git talk by a guy called Jeremy Lindblom. And he was singing a song. And I'm going to play it for you now, because it's really funny. If the audio works.
Get help config and init. Remote fetch pull, let's edit. Diff add status commit. You're doing Git. That's it. Check out merge, rebase, don't quit. Clean, erase, attack, push those bits. You're doing Git. You're doing Git. Work and clone all the repos you know. Patches and pull requests, you'll steal the Git show. You're doing Git. You're doing Git. You're doing it. Check it, blame, and see your username. Hope you ran the test before your commit. Your other friends will think you're an idiot. You're doing Git. You're doing Git. You're doing Git. You're doing Git. Exit.
So, yeah, that's Jeremy Lindblom. He works for Amazon, and he's great at coding and apparently also at singing. So these are the essential things of Git, and, you know, memorize the song, memorize Git. But I'm not here to do a Git talk, but I can show you how to learn Git yourself. So I found this really cool interactive tutorial. It was trygithub.io. And in here, you just write everything and try Git and just go there because it's awesome, it's life-changing. You can also try other resources. Git Immersion is really good for getting into Git, and book that I have linked there is good as well. So Git, my previous times I've given this talk, I asked after every step for people to contribute to it. And I didn't know about this awesome little tool called Hoop. So I actually learned something from people contributing to my talk, which was awesome. So Hoop is Git's tool for getting GitHub into the terminal, basically. And what you can do, it's basically Git with GitHub superpowers. So you can add a remote just by typing the name instead of the entire URL. Or you can do a pull request immediately from your terminal. Or you can just write git browse and it goes to the browser for you. And it basically replaces Git and adds some superpowers. It's fantastic. And now I'm going to show you my GitHub workflow. First, you fork. You press the fork button. That's so easy. And you have it. Ta-da! Done. Then you clone. You could copy the link here to clone it if you want. Or you could use this cool tool hub and just clone in your terminal. And when you have the link, git clone the link, and then the rest happens. And you have the code base on your computer. It's awesome. That's all you needed to know about cloning. And then I would advise looking at the code base. Is it nice? Do you really want to do this now? Are you sure? Because it's scary. It's really scary. And coding guidelines. Look if there's any coding guidelines. Look if the project actually follows them. Because if there's a mixture of coding guidelines, you may want to get into that discussion, you know, tabs versus spaces. Or Then there's the contribute file that you should look at before you actually contribute. A lot of open source projects has it, but not every project has it. And if it doesn't, contributing a contribute file is kind of meta, so do that. And read the README. Actually read everything in the README. If there's tests, run them. That should be pretty obvious, but run them. If you don't know how to run tests, I suggest you learn how to run tests. And if there's not tests, are you willing to contribute them? Or are you okay with the project not having tests? Because sometimes you really want it. And then say hi. Communicate before you code. Go to all the channels, like a lot of projects has an IRC channel. They have a mailing list. Or communicate at the GitHub issue tracker or anywhere, really. But communicate, make sure you do it. then pick an issue. You can either pick an issue or you can make an issue. Picking an issue is pretty straightforward. You see all the issues on GitHub and you start picking it. So I picked this issue, for instance, and in there you have this discussion going on. So before you actually pick the issue, you can start a discussion like, how do you think this should be solved? Is there any clarification on this? Has anyone worked on it before? And then they can assign you to the issue. And if there's none, make an issue. It's a really straightforward form. And then make your changes. You know how to code, right? And when you made your changes, it's time to push it. You can either do this in the terminal, or you can do it via your client, whatever you're using. It's just a command, git push, ta-da, then that was all I had to say about pushing. Then comes the scariest step of open source. Or maybe the second scariest, the pull request. It's time to show the world what you've been doing. It's time to get out of your closet. I was so scared. But don't worry, be happy. Because it's just a button and a form, just like everything else on GitHub. You see, it's so easy, I guess. I was almost emotional when I did it. I did it at the PHP Northwest hackathon. Everyone was around me, and it didn't work because there was no internet. So, but in your pull request, there's some things you can do. Like you can link to the issue tracker to your issue by hash and an issue number. And if you use any of these keywords, it will resolve or close the issue for you if they merge the pull request completely automatically, which is really, really cool. And after that, you often wait for like ages and ages, or it goes within a second and you're like, whoa, what? Then it's code review. That is maybe the most scary part. Some projects, they just merge it or they say denied. They don't say a reason, but then it's good for you to start a discussion and ask, if they didn't merge it, why didn't you? And some clarifications. And sometimes they say, this looks great, but you didn't really know Git yet, so fix your screw up, which was my case. So correct or discuss. You learn so much. And sometimes there are trolls, but trolls can be cute too. Often, when you think they are trolling, they are just Dutch. I learned that the Dutch are so direct. It's crazy. So, really, really read everything, because, yeah. Then, this is pretty straightforward, but it still doesn't really help, because I was still scared. I didn't want to contribute. So I guess I got over it when I started going to conferences. My first conference is not on here. It was the PF Congress in Utrecht, Netherlands. It was a really small conference and quite cozy. And they said, we're taking you to PHP Northwest. So there I was in 2011 on my first international conference in the UK. And in there, life changed to the better. Then I became a conference addict, and I went to all these conferences. Well, I haven't been to this. I just put it there because I want to go there, and this one, and this one. But, if you start going to conferences, you start meeting people, and that's when your fear starts disappearing. And I started going to this awesome youth group, Amsterdam PHP. And in there was this guy, Rafael, who completely helped me with everything. I'll talk more about him later. And use groups also become kind of an addiction. So I went to the PHP Benelux meetings, which were close, and I became the co-president of PHP Women. I started my own local user group, Groningen PHP, which was an experience on its own, because in Groningen there was no PHP community. I knew no PHP developers there. It's a pretty small town. So I went to the first meetup, me there, hoping someone would arrive. 2 guys did, and after that we have between 10 and 20 every meetup. It's awesome. And there's a local use group here, PHP London. Obviously, you've probably heard of it. There's PHP Northwest in Manchester. So, for me, overcoming the fear happened a lot on IRC. I am an IRC addict, I admit. I'm in over 60 IRC channels. My nickname on IRC is Geeky. If you're on IRC, you've probably seen me. I go to PHP Mentoring, PC, and PHP Women as my default IRC channels. And they're all on Freenode. And on IRC, this thing happened called PHP Mentoring and phpmentoring.org. This is Matthew. He's my testing mentor. And I can't tell you how important mentorships are. Especially when speaking. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these guys. This is a really, 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 really old picture. That's Rafael Doms, and it was his first international conference. He runs the Amsterdam PHP use group as he moved to Amsterdam. And he's been a big inspiration to me. He told me, you should speak, and he put me on the Amsterdam PHP stage for 60 people. It was full then. And it was scary. I was shaking, but he hugged me, and he said it will be okay. Then Davey stepped in, and he helps me with my abstracts and everything. I mean, it's awesome. Then Linneke, she doesn't know she's my mentor, but she is. She's the other co-president of PHP Women. And she was the one who actually got me over that first step to contribute on a hackathon. Then there was one guy who helped me more than any one of the other. It's Igor Wiedler. I know, I just talked code with him, and he showed me that my code was good. He told me that, and that changed my code confidence forever. So every time I have some code, I show him, and we discuss it for hours. And he helps me. He really does. So to overcome the fear, start going to conferences, start going to user group, talk to people, get a mentor or 5, 10, 20, whatever. What helps is to have every mentor does one thing. Like Matthew is my testing mentor, Davey is my talks mentor, and Igor is my code confidence mentor. Also, something that helps is having friends. I met them at conferences, such as Erica, and that's Anthony Ferrara, who now works at Google. And they apparently like wearing the same t-shirt, so. Also, friends are invaluable. This was after a conference. We just decided to go out in Amsterdam for a few days, just for fun. And I guess my first contribution and community completely changed me. I'm still code passionate. I really am. My mom is still a graphical artist. Now I'm a conference addict. I was calculating for my company how many conferences I've been on in 2013. And I realized that I've been to 11 conferences in 2013, most of them abroad. And I am now obviously a speaker somehow, which is cool. And I am not afraid to contribute because I have these people to lean on. I have everyone. And then I decided some time ago, maybe this yippee unsuccessful company it's not for me because somehow I need to earn money. I don't know. So now I'm going to move to Switzerland. I'm going to work for this awesome company, Leap. And they hired me basically because I'm in open source and I'm big in the community and they really like what I'm doing. So doing open source led to hopefully one of the most awesome jobs I will ever have. And it also led to me being in the community. I'm co-president of PHP Women, which is this awesome group to support women in the community. And I will happily share my stories with them and mentor them. I mentor new people all the time because I know I've been there. And, running and PHP, going out there and running my own user group, that, freaks me out. But it's all thanks to you. It's all thanks to the community. Community really, really, really does work. So now it's actually time for you to share your stories. Does anyone have an open source story to share?
Questions and stories to share about being in open source or starting in open source? Anybody who hasn't yet started in open source is now slightly less nervous and wants to talk about it. Yeah, question.
So stories about open source. I've done a lot of open source stuff, and I have my first major contribution to PHP, I would say, is currently in an RFC, and it's not getting good feedback. But it was a learning experience, and it's been fantastic. I'm like trying to pick up C. It's a big thing for me. I've had a lot of failures in open source projects, things I've started that have gone nowhere. But they're always learning experiences, they're always exposure. And it's interesting, I have like an API for Rackspace, which is silly as I work for Engine Yard. But it kind of never went anywhere, but I still get more questions about that than anything else that I've done, and people are interested. So just putting stuff out there is fantastic for people to review who you are, judge you as a person. That sounds really bad, but like if you're looking for a job, it's a great way for employers to look and see kind of how you work, how you contribute, how you work with other people. And it's fantastic.
Yes, definitely. So when I gave this talk, my first talk ever at Amsterdam PHP, there was this company sponsoring the venue and the pizzas and the beer. And they asked me a lot of questions because they had no open source code. But they were thinking, if we can open source our tools, other people can help us use our tools. And our tools would be so much better. We help others, they help us, we don't have to pay the salaries. So 2 months later, this one guy who had been there, he did a talk at Amsterdam PHP about his first open source project. And he was mad at me because he had no contributors. So, any other stories?
All the way at the back.
Story with a two-part question or a two-part statement. I run an open source project, and I think a lot of people are scared of contributing, but there's a lot of ways of contributing besides just providing code. One way is, if you find a bug, report it in a way that's reproducible to those of us that do develop. Another is to help out answering questions, or if someone reports a bug that's very general, to try and find a way of reproducing it, or to answer questions on forums about the software. So there's a lot more ways of contributing to open source than simply coding.
Definitely. I know that one of the biggest contributions I make to open source is actually, it doesn't have to do with code, it's being there, supporting other people, answering questions, because that's something everyone can do. As I said, I'm an RC addict, so I'll probably be there anyway, just ask. It really helps. Any other tips for new contributors?
Yeah. Grab one just behind you.
Just something that you kind of touched on, but I started recently contributing to Joined In, and I found that it was a great way to take up or learn a new technology, because in my day job I pretty much work on a fixed stack, so I don't have much opportunity to learn anything new.
Awesome.
And contributing to Joined In let me learn, well, quite a lot of new things. And you're right, it is scary to begin with, but yeah, the community really is helpful. So I just want to add that. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to contribute to Join In, they're one of the most friendly projects I know about. You go to their RSC channel and you can ask any question, and they help you. They really, really do. And they also have, on their issue tracker, they have easy pick issues. So your first contribution can be something really small, because it helps to just get you started.
Joined In, what URL would Joined In be at?
Join.in.
Joined.in.
Yeah, definitely contribute to Joined In if you can. I'm a contributor too. So there's 2 points. Another good way of contributing, and I say this as the documentation maintainer of Zen Framework 2, is to contribute documentation. Contributing documentation, you're not going to get code reviews. You're not going to get as much judgment contributing to documentation as you are code. So it's also a really good way to make your name known in the community, to contribute documentation first. Particularly if there's no documentation, something is always better than nothing. Or if you've noticed just a small typo in the documentation that frustrated you for 10 minutes, it takes you, 90 seconds to create a pull request that can fix that typo that's frustrated you for 10 minutes. And that's really, really, gratefully received by any project. Yeah.
Definitely.
I just wanted to thank you, because your talk at Amsterdam PHP was my second meetup there, and it really helped me. I started contributing after that, and my first contribution was it was not planned for Symfony, and I just got a weird bug, and I went to the Silex channel. I was doing Silex, and then Igor helped me, also Igor. So, and he said, do a pull request, come on. And then I was really scared, really, because come on, my first contribution, I don't have this courage to go to Symfony, but I had to do it 3 times, because I was always doing it wrong. I had to learn how to use Git properly, but it really worked, and it's all your fault. And even Vagrant, the first time I heard about Vagrant was in your talk. It was really life-changing for me.
Wow, and now you're even talking about Vagrant.
Yeah, so thank you.
You wrote a book on it.
I was going to say, as far as documentation, one great way that you can easily contribute is it's actually possible on GitHub to edit directly on the web. Yeah. And because it's typically HTML or Markdown or something, you don't need to clone it and have it in your local machine. And it's a really easy way to submit things back to a project.
My first contribution has been on a Python project, a program to convert audio files, and I was showing the program to my sister, and she did some stuff with some specific pattern of settings, and it happened that a part of her original files has been deleted. Quite destructive. And so the project is on GitHub, and I had a look, and I found out how to fix it. I fixed it. At the same time, I also updated some stuff on the UI to make it more convenient. There are no shortcut to close the application. I pushed 2 pull requests, and they've been accepted a few days after, and was really great. It was like changing the world around me, and was really it paid a lot in self-confidence or something, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I would just say too, like, you've probably heard horror stories about people getting shamed and whatnot, and that happened to me my first time. And don't wait a year and a half like I did to get back involved. Come and talk to some of us nice people, and we would love to be with you as you work through your first contribution. We'll help you find the people that you need to talk to before you submit your pull requests and such. And we really do want to help you make it a nice, easy, happy first time contributing. Or if you have contributed in the past and it didn't go well, I really strongly encourage you to give it another try. It really is wonderful, and don't let a few crabby people dissuade you from getting involved.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
Again, as the maintainer of an open source library, I don't always have the time to respond immediately to pull requests or requests for help or anything. That doesn't mean I ignore them. It may be some time before you get a response if you do a pull request, or if you make a submission or report a fault. But open source developers have a work-life balance as well.
Yes.
So please be patient with us too. Thank you.
Yes, most people do open source on their spare time, so it's really something. Yeah, be patient. That was a good tip, thank you.
I might ask, those people who have not yet contributed to an open source project at the beginning of this class, are you more likely to now?
And if you're not, why wouldn't you? Because I would love to help you. You can talk to me after, and PHP Mentoring, it can help you also. And, just join the channels or mailing lists, and you can be anonymous if you want to. That's also a tip Igor gave me, to start an anonymous GitHub repo before, just to try it out, because I wasn't confident to do all this stuff. So, again, I went into anonymity. And it helps because you think, okay, this is silly to be anonymous because now I know I can do it. So you don't have to be you. It doesn't have to be you who go out to the world. But afterwards, you're probably going to be like me. People call me geeky on conferences because they know me so well, but it was just meant to be an anonymous nickname. So it's cool.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Join us.